Did you know Queen's biggest hit was leaked? Bruce Springsteen was almost fired, or that Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones had a huge disagreement over Smooth Criminal. Also, Billie Eilish's song was called Not Pop Enough. Welcome back to Spin This, and in today's episode, we are breaking down the songs that either the executives hated, the artist despised, or everyone underrated except for the fans. Should we get started? Signs point to yes, so let's spin this. For our first spin, let's go back to November 11th, 2002. I bet you can't spot how many clocks I have in this set right now because we're talking about Clocks by Coldplay. The song was originally released on their second album, A Rush of Blood to the Head, but it actually wasn't originally meant to be released until their third album. Coldplay had already completely finished 10 songs for their second album, which was totally ready to be released, by the way. But Chris Martin, the singer and songwriter of Coldplay, was deeply dissatisfied with the tracklist and actually called the record rubbish. One night in Liverpool, close to the original release date of the album, Chris Martin just stumbled upon the iconic piano riff and temporarily labeled it Song for Number 3. Number 3 being the third album. But both the band and the label agreed to postpone the release of the album so they could keep working on it and be happy with the product. Their manager at the time, Phil Harvey, heard Songs for Number 3 and pushed Chris Martin to get it finished ASAP. Phil Harvey pointed out the irony of the song. Since Clock is all about ticking time, urgency, and missed opportunity, he thought it would make absolutely no sense to delay the song for a third album. So Clocks being on A Rush of Blood to the Head was almost a missed opportunity. Irony? Yeah. However, other than Phil Harvey, Chris Martin didn't get a lot of encouragement from his fellow peers. Yes, their bassist Guy Berryman and their guitarist Johnny Buckland did help to push their song into completion, but their drummer Will Champion said Clocks was, quote, not a song. He thought the song relied way too much on the piano's arpeggio and there were no chords. It was just a pretty arpeggio. One of their other managers also said, if this is a hit, then I'll eat my hat. Well, I hope that manager is having a nice dinner with a side of hat because Clocks won a Grammy for Record of the Year in 2004. The song was also voted the greatest song of its decade by BBC Radio 6 Music. Billboard also ranked it as the #1 best Coldplay song. Time for the next one. If you've seen the Queen movie, then you might know a little bit of what I'm about to be talking about. Bohemian Rhapsody was a masterpiece of fusing opera with rock, but their label didn't think it would ever make it to radio because it was way too long. Standard pop and rock songs at the time had a 3 to 3.5 minute limit in order to make it on radio. This song was a whopping 5 minutes and 55 seconds. That is almost doubled the standard rule. Also, jukeboxes were still a major revenue driver at the time, so shorter songs meant more songs played in an hour, which meant more quarters spent in an hour, which meant more money. So the labels were for sure, it was never going to be on radio, it was never going to go to jukeboxes, and probably nobody would listen to it. Their label, EMI, begged them to create a shorter version of the song with the opera section completely cut out. But Freddie Mercury was incredibly stubborn and told the label that they either released the whole thing or nothing at all. But also, Freddie Mercury had something up his sleeve. He did something incredibly genius and a bit of a reverse psychology trick on his DJ radio friend, Kenny Everett. Yeah, also the comedian. At the time, Kenny Everett worked at London's Capital Radio, so Freddie Mercury gave him a leaked tape of Bohemian Rhapsody with one simple rule: do not play this on air. Kenny Everett played it 14 times that weekend. On air. On the radio. The whole thing. All 5 minutes and 55 seconds of it. Here's a little clip of what that sounded like back in 1975.
There's a new one around the corner and we shall bring it to you first. In fact, we have their new single. It's not even been pressed into wax yet. It's on tape and it's waiting for me to press the button. Exclusive Scooparooty! Yes, friends, Freddie pressed it into my hot little hand this very last night, and he said, go forth and be fab, Ken. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time anywhere in this universe of ours, we present at this moment of time the new Queen single. Excuse me while I scrape myself off the ceiling. Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody. That's the modern version of Beethoven.
The audience loved it. Radio stations' phones were melting from fans calling, and come Monday morning, record stores were swarmed with excited fans wanting this single in their hands. They wanted to purchase it, but the vinyl wasn't even pressed yet. It didn't even get a green light. It's not even a post-it note on a wall somewhere that's like, send a note to vinyl manufacturer to press Bohemian Rhapsody. It wasn't a thing. The overwhelming demand for the single forced EMI to release the song in its entirety. The song went on to be inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2004 and has been voted UK's greatest single of all time by the Guinness Book of World Records. Also, the Recording Industry Association of America certified Bohemian Rhapsody as being diamond status for achieving over 10 million sales and equivalent streams in 2021. Queen is the first British band to receive this certificate. They've also hit #1 on billboards in 3 different decades. Once in 1975 when the song was first released, then again in 1992 when it was featured in Wayne's World, and then again in 2018 when Bohemian Rhapsody the biopic was released. It's also the most streamed song of the 20th century. It is also the first video pre-1990 to hit 1 billion streams on YouTube. It also has some pretty funny misheard lyrics that I'm going to share with you. Instead of any way the wind blows, 50 ways the wind blows. Scaramouche, Scaramouche, no. Badaboosh, Badaboosh. Bismillah, Bar Mitzvah. This lyric especially has numerous variations. Be heel is a tub as the devil put aside for me. Beelzebub has a devil on the slide trombone, cause that sounds anything like it. And Beelzebub has a devil put his eye for me. Is that even grammatically correct? Number 3. Smooth Criminal almost never saw the light of day. Michael Jackson wrote the song with his B team at his home studio, so it was practically complete before ever showing it to his amazing producer, Quincy Jones. Michael Jackson's plan was to finish the song with Quincy Jones and actually name the album Smooth Criminal. But unfortunately, Quincy Jones hated the song. But Michael Jackson was already attached to it and pushed it to be on the album. Can you imagine arguing with Quincy Jones? But like also, can you imagine arguing with Michael Jackson? I don't know which one's worse. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones eventually came to an agreement that Quincy would allow for the song to be on the album if Michael Jackson named the album Bad instead of Smooth Criminal. Quincy Jones thought that this would give Michael Jackson a little bit more of an edge, because he's bad. You know it. I mean, Simone. I'm gonna get comfy for this one because it has a lot of cool facts, specifically about CPR. You know the line, Annie, are you okay? Will you tell us if you're okay? First off, we may never know if Annie's okay. But secondly, Annie's actually inspired by Rasusi Ann or Rasusi Annie. This is the CPR dummy used in training. Also, did you know that the face on those CPR dummies is actually inspired by a real person? Also, in CPR training, people are asked to say, Annie, are you okay? Before giving CPR. Michael Jackson and his brothers took CPR training in the 1980s, but not only is Annie a reference to CPR, but the tempo of the song is a near perfect match to the rhythm needed to perform CPR on an adult. Also, don't know if you know this, but at the very beginning of the song, the heartbeat in the background, that's Michael Jackson's heartbeat. The heartbeat was recorded in 1987 by Dr. Eric Shevlin at Westlake Studios. Using special medical equipment and a Synclavier synthesizer, they were able to digitally manipulate the tempo of the heartbeat so it would speed up and build tension. This song also has misheard lyrics. Instead of Annie, are you okay? We have Annie, do you want cake? You've been struck by a soup criminal. You're stealing your soup, guys. Better get it back. I mean, what's going on? What's Going On by Marvin Gaye was called the worst thing I'd ever heard by Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown. Actually, they disliked it so much that Marvin Gaye had to self-finance the studio sessions for the song. He hired extra musicians from the Detroit Symphony Orchestra and used local Detroit Lions football players to add street chatter in the background. But the label still didn't give him the green light to release it, so it just sat on the shelf until Marvin Gaye went on strike. He told the label that he wasn't going to record any more songs until they released this single. Once it was released, despite the label's hesitancy, it was a wild success. It peaked at #2 on Billboard's Hot 100 and stayed at the top of the R&B charts for 5 weeks. It totally redefined pop and soul by adding jazz and gospel to the mix. Next up, Talk This Way Now, because Walk This Way by Aerosmith and Run DMC was almost a collaboration that didn't exist. Run DMC didn't like the idea at first because they thought it would ruin their career and completely alienate them from their hip-hop fans. But they did go through with it and started recording with Aerosmith. However, on the day of recording, Joe Perry, Aerosmith's bassist, didn't have a bass guitar readily available to actually play for the track. No judgment, I'm a drummer, not a bassist, but you would think they would have a bass guitar. But it didn't matter because the Beastie Boys just happened to be sitting in the studio that day. So one of the Beastie Boys ran to his apartment, which was nearby, got his bass, and came back within 15 15 minutes so that Joe Perry could play the bass line. If it wasn't for the Beastie Boys, who knows if there was even going to be a bass in the track. Aerosmith's label was worried that they would get mocked for the collaboration, and Run DMC's label was equally nervous and thought that their audience would think that it's too gimmicky or cartoonish. But in reality, this was the song that merged rock and rap into a whole new era. Walk This Way was the first rap song to ever hit #1 on Billboard's Hot 100. Also, not only did it bring Aerosmith back into the limelight after a series of flopped albums, but it also inspired Steven Tyler and Joe Perry to seek sobriety. You know what that means. Now time for a break and a word from our sponsors. Do you suffer from boredom and a lack of musical knowledge? Then watch Spin This. Side effects may include enjoyment, increased neuroplasticity, immediate urge to subscribe, and a sudden need to comment on your opinion. Back to you. Next up, Bad Guy by Billie Eilish. Label bosses said that the song was too experimental, too empty, and not pop enough. Labels are so judgy, let me just say. They thought it would never make it to radio because it lacked a traditional, explosive pop chorus and a proper hook. But Phineas, Billie Eilish's brother and producer, refused to change a single thing and wanted it exactly the way they wrote it in their bedroom. And the dry, whispery, claustrophobic vibe was the hook. Duh. The label's nervousness eventually trickled down to Phineas and Billie Eilish themselves because, yeah, it wasn't a traditional pop song. It didn't fit the mold that everybody is used to. What they didn't realize is that's exactly what the world wanted, was something different. The song was the best performing global single of 2019 and won Grammys for Best Record and Song of the Year. Little fun fact, the dum-da-da-da-da-dum. Okay, I can't sing like Billie Eilish, but that part was an ad-lib for a filler melody that was inspired by the Plants vs. Zombies theme song. That part was also almost cut because they thought it would be too annoying to fans, but it's kind of what makes it iconic, you know? I'm not a creep, I'm not a weirdo, and neither is Radiohead because they hate this song. Creep was never meant to be recorded. They just played it jokingly one time during a rehearsal lull. Tom York even called it a Scott Walker song. The producers thought it was just a really good rendition of a cover, but once they found out it was a Radiohead original, they had to record the song. And they did so in one take. But Radiohead never wanted to even record that one take. Their guitarist Johnny Greenwood actually added the crunchy guitar sound right before the chorus as a sabotage. Once it was released, the writers of The Hollies, a band from the 60s, actually sued Radiohead because they claimed it sounded way too much like one of their songs, The Air That I Breathe. So the writers Albert Hammond and Mike Hazelwood were added to the credits as co-writers. But then, 10 years later, Radiohead themselves threatened to sue Lana Del Rey for her song Get Free because it sounded way too close to Creep. Honestly, I was kind of surprised the writers of The Hollies didn't try to sue her too. Despite Creep being a massive success, except it being banned by radio for it being too depressing, Radiohead hated playing the song and actually avoided it for many years. Tom York felt that the lyrics were absolute crap and it didn't represent who they were anymore. Also, Radiohead purists often hate the song as well because they agree it's not a good representation of Radiohead. Anyway, let's just go ahead and be gone with it, because I'm bringing Sexy back. In Metalworks studio in Ontario, Canada, during a simple beatbox session, Timbaland had said to Justin Timberlake that they needed to bring dance music back. So Justin Timberlake on the spot freestyled the line, "I'm bringing sexy back." Yeah. And so SexyBack was born. That's it, that's how it happened, boom, done. But it was received as a total joke. Justin Timberlake's label at the time, Jive Zomba, guess what? Hated the song, because that's a totally original story that I just found just now. They said it's too flat, you're not singing, your voice is way too distorted, no one can tell that it's you. So Justin Timberlake made a deal. He would shoot a music video for Sexy Back, but then immediately afterward, shoot a music video for My Love. If Sexy Back looked like it was going to be a complete disaster, then My Love was their backup plan. Once the label greenlighted the song, then radio stations didn't know what to do with it and thought it was a joke. Justin Timberlake even had to call radio stations himself to prove that it was actually his track. Once everybody was in agreement that it was a real song, it's actually Justin Timberlake, and blah 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 blah, it made it to the public ear and it hit big. Its original release was a very quiet release, hitting only number 90 in Billboard Hot 100. But once it made its digital release, it jumped to number 1 and stayed there for 7 weeks. It also hit number 1 in charts in the UK, Australia, Germany, New Zealand, Ireland, and Norway. I mean, hesitant labels say what? It also won the 2007 Grammy for Best Dance Recording. Now, tell your friends to collect your records and then change your number because somebody that I used to know was almost trashed twice. The song was written at a barn studio at Gotye's parents' farm. After Gotye had written the verses, Gotye felt that the chorus was completely flat. In an interview with BBC in 2012, he admitted to nearly abandoning the project because all of the synth textures that he spent weeks just layering onto the chorus to make it sound big and boomy and pop actually sounded fake and unrealistic and unnatural. This is the first time Gotye almost trashed the project, but then he discovered the raw acoustic xylophone pattern for the chorus, and thus he didn't trash it. Since Gotye wrote a song as a duet between two exes, it needed its female counterpart. Originally, it was set to be sung by a high-profile Australian singer, but she pulled out at the last minute. So Gotye searched wide and far. Originally looking to America, it's actually been rumored that Katy Perry was even asked, but she declined. What do you think about this rumor? Myth or real? He almost gave up again because nobody could portray the raw, emotional, painful vocals that were meant for the song. But then, the producer suggested the widely unknown Kimbra. She saved the track and brought the emotional pain that we all love about the song. It's a masterpiece duet, if anybody asks me. But an almost trash hit doesn't even compare to an almost trashed artist. Born to Run was Bruce Springsteen's last chance in the industry. Bruce Springsteen had a streak of flopping albums, so Columbia Records gave him one last chance, a small budget, and a huge ultimatum. If your next album doesn't have a major hit, then we're dropping you. Bruce Springsteen spent 14 months on the Born to Run album. The turning point came when John Lando entered the mix as Bruce Springsteen's producer. John Lando was the person who famously said, "I saw rock and roll future, and its name was Bruce Springsteen." When the Born to Run album was finally released, it was a smash hit. It was number 3 on Billboard's Hot 100 and saved Bruce Springsteen's career. That's crazy. That thing still works. Spin the Studios, this is Simone Lockhart. How may I help you? Steve, I'm kind of in the middle of filming here. What did I tell you? Wait, you have Dave Grohl? Oh, no, we didn't. Yeah, put him through. Hey, Dave, how's it going? Yeah, no, we didn't get him on. Yeah, that is definitely a problem. But listen, I'm thinking about doing an episode soon on grunge or sub pop or the Seattle sound, huh? Yeah, what do you think? Disco? Dave, no, come on, we can't put you on disco. Let's save that for the Bee Gees. The DGs don't count. They don't count. Okay, what about dad rock? All right, let's put you where you fit.